Listening to Local News Live, brought to you daily as a community service of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate, as usual. And of course, with the help, we wouldn't be able to do this without the help of our volunteer newsreaders like Mr. Bruce Cohen, who is in the house, I believe. Bruce, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome to the show this morning, Bruce. We, as always, appreciate you doing this. Hope you had a good weekend.
I did. I hope everybody tuned in to AOC's and Festival International's places where they can go to virtually be a part of the Festival International, since we couldn't do it live this year.
I know I was watching to get my, little fill of festival, and as my neighbors begin doing yard work, I'm going to let you take it away, Bruce, and go listen on the radio.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, my man. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bruce.
And good morning, Acadiana. So let's get right to the news. Of course, it's about the coronavirus, and there are some bright spots in today's news reading, so let's get to those. New cracks appear in custody cases, but that's not something that we want to talk about right now. Just appeared, it appeared on my screen. So what I'd like to do, though, is read about, let me see here, I'm getting some, Give me a second, folks. All right. We'll start off by the governor laying out his plan to reopen the economy. Loosening of restrictions will be a slow process. By Sam Carlin. Louisiana residents and businesses will find out this week what the next phase of coronavirus restrictions look like once the state stay-at-home order expires on Friday. Governor John Bel Edwards is expected to unveil as soon as Monday the first phase of a gradual reopening of the economy. Edwards has indicated in recent days he will begin loosening restrictions once the strict stay-at-home order expires on Friday. As long as the state continues to see a falling number of new coronavirus cases, hospitalizations, and reported coronavirus-like symptoms. Those metrics continue to fall as of Friday as the state's trajectory on deaths remains stubbornly high. His administration in recent days have raced to hash out the details of what the next phase of reopening will look like. We know the stay-at-home order ends on April 30th, and that's this Thursday. We know that something comes next, Edwards said on past Friday. But that looks like phase one of a reopening of the economy, which will be very, very gradual and slow because we don't want to go back to where we were, or whether it's a continuation because we don't quite meet that criteria. We don't know that yet. Whether or not Edwards begins the reopening Friday as expected, he has cautioned to people to manage expectations. The first phase will still involve a litany of restrictions on businesses, the governor has suggested. For instance, when restaurants reopen, they will likely be required to space out customers, and employees could be required to wear face masks. I want people to have their expectations in check because phase one is a very gradual easing of restrictions, Edwards said. It's not as if we're going to be going back to where we were before. The announcement of what the next phase will include is highly anticipated, especially by businesses itching to reopen if they're allowed. For weeks, Louisiana has shuttered bars, casinos, gyms, shopping malls, and other businesses to slow the spread of the coronavirus here. Restaurants have been limited to drive-through, delivery, and takeout, and schools were shuttered for the rest of the school year. The closures have largely had their intended effect. The rate of new cases, hospitalizations, and ventilator use have trended steadily downward or plateaued. While Edwards has rejected opening the state parish by parish, as some Republican lawmakers have called for, New Orleans has already extended its stay-at-home order until mid-May. That makes it likely the rest of the state will be opening up sooner than New Orleans. Edwards' administration have worked furiously to hash out the details of the new order in recent days. If reopening begins Friday, Louisiana will be loosening its restrictions less than 2 months after experiencing the fastest growth rate of coronavirus cases in the world. An outbreak so out of control it threatened to overwhelm New Orleans hospitals and prompted officials to build a 2,000-bed temporary hospital facility in the Ernest L. Morial Convention Center. While the state is loosely following White House guidance on reopening, Edwards said the state will not follow it entirely. For instance, the state has already allowed elective surgeries to resume earlier than the guidelines recommended. President Donald Trump has largely deferred to governors on how and when to best reopen their economies. I'm pretty sure we'll make a few mistakes, Edwards said, but because we're going to be testing and monitoring, we'll be picking up mistakes pretty quickly. Federal guidance says vulnerable people, the elderly, and those with underlying health conditions should remain sheltered in place in phase one of the reopening. And health experts in Louisiana have cautioned that the high rate of health conditions like obesity and diabetes in the state makes the reopening prospect dicier. Louisiana has one of the highest death toll rates per capita from the virus in the U.S., owing largely to the greater prevalence of underlying health conditions. Black people have died at higher rates than the white people in the state, prompting the governor to convene a task force on health equity. The White House guidelines for phase one of reopening says people should continue to practice social distancing and should not socialize in groups of 10 or more if social distancing is not feasible. Non-essential travel should be minimized. Employers should encourage telework and schools should remain closed. Large venues like sit-down dining, movie theaters, sporting venues, and churches can operate under strict physical distancing. According to the guidance, gyms can reopen with strict sanitation and distancing protocols, but bars should remain closed. In phase two of the White House guidance, restaurants and other businesses can loosen their physical distancing protocols, and bars could open with diminished standing room occupancy. To start the reopening and to continue to move ahead in the coming months, Louisiana needs to boost its testing capacity of the coronavirus. The state needs the ability to do at least 140,000 tests a month, and ideally around 200,000 for the first phase, officials said. The goal is to get to the point where officials can closely track new infections and deploy contact tracers to find out who came in contact with infected people so they can be isolated and prevented from spreading the virus further. The state tried to do contact tracing in early March in the New Orleans area after the virus was first discovered here, but officials quickly realized it had already spread too far to many people for contact tracing to be effective. While the governor has said he won't mandate residents wear masks in public, he has urged people to do so. And under the phase reopening, Edwards has indicated workers may be required to wear masks, especially if they interact with the public. If you want to successfully reopen your business, you need to protect people from COVID-19, Edwards said. Okay, I'm going to try to intersperse some lighter stories, more positive stories in between the coronavirus stories. So let's go to this one where a principal makes it personal. Woodville official uses COVID-19 diagnosis as teaching moment by Katie Gagliano. After receiving a COVID-19 diagnosis Easter Sunday, Woodville Elementary Principal Monique Vitos typed up a brief note at the end of her weekly newsletter to parents. On another note, unfortunately, I have tested positive for COVID-19, the note read. I have been home and resting as I try to get well. Vitos says she tried to use the diagnosis as a teaching moment. While it was unlikely she would have spread the disease to others in the Woodville community, Vitos says she felt obligated to share so families without personal experience with the virus could put a face to the pandemic. For others to hear someone know that they got it, it might bring more awareness to them about precautions to keep themselves healthy and not catch the disease. Vitos said when they go out to wear the masks and gloves, they need to keep social distancing to try to be a little more aware that it is a real illness and it can affect anyone possibly. Vitos, 56, began to feel sick in early April, but initially assumed her coughing was allergy related. Then the cough persisted and deepened. On April 9th, she woke up with chest tightness. She went to her doctor's office for testing, and 3 days later, she got the phone call, COVID-19 positive. Vitos described her case as mild. She has a persistent cough that lasted a day and a night, fatigue, headaches that began when she woke up, and loss of appetite. She spent most of her time sleeping or on the sofa with her iPad checking the news, work emails, and messages from families and friends, she said. That fatigue made it difficult to complete standard tasks. It was all my energy to load the dishwasher, she said. Two of her adult daughters helped care for her. Vitos says she worked to remain separated from them. They washed their hands frequently after touching common surfaces, and everything was disinfected often. Vitos says she was thankful to recover at home. During the illness, she offered prayers for those more severely ill because she recognized her good fortune. She said she is uncertain how she contracted the virus. She went grocery shopping a couple of days after Governor John Bel Edwards first closed K-12 schools in mid-March. But other than that trip, she left the house only to work alone at Woodville. No one in her family, church, or school circles have had the virus that she knows of, she said. To this day, I still haven't heard of anybody else that I truly know that's contracted it, Vito said. School board member Hannah Smith Mason, whose children attend Woodville, noted how Vito's diagnosis arrived within days of the governor's decision to keep schools closed to the end of the academic year. That knowledge gave her further confidence they were making the correct decision to keep schools closed, she said. Mason said when she first read the newsletter, she did a double take before processing Vito's news. She knew others who have contracted the virus, but knows that's not the case for all families. It comes as a surprise to many parents she spoke with. Mason said it was very brave and big of Vito's to use her personal experience as a lesson for students and families. Can you imagine if we hadn't taken the precautions or had already gone back? And here's Miss Vito's who has it, and our school could have gotten it, Mason said. The repercussions of that could have been catastrophic because it's not just our kids, it's our kids' parents, their grandparents. Lafayette is a community that's full of multi-generational families that are all very much in touch with each other and take care of one another. When Woodville Assistant Principal Anne Marie Tayson heard the news from Vito's, she was concerned about the virus from the beginning, worried about the virus entering the schools, spreading from students and staff members' families, and endangering the medically vulnerable, including special education students. If something would have happened to one of those children because we didn't call off a school a week earlier, your mind can go down a rabbit hole of all the things that could have happened. At the announcement, Tessa knew she wanted to do something to help correct the school community and offer well wishes to Vito's and other Woodville community members who may be dealing with the virus. Tessa sent emails in small groups to teacher teams in each grade level and staff, trying to keep the plan under wraps to avoid tipping off Vito's. It was difficult with staff to disperse, but Tessa made a 12-minute video with staff singing songs, reading poetry, and holding get well signs. She slipped the video into the April 19th weekly newsletter Vito sent to Woodville families. She's just so important to all of us, and I know I would want someone to do something for me, Tessa said. The video, coupled with cards from students and emails from families and staff, made her smile, Vito said. It's been difficult being separated from a network of extended family during the pandemic, and knowing her Woodville family was thinking of her meant a lot, Vito said. I was very touched to know they were behind me, she said. It warmed my heart that Tessa took the time to put all this together and that the teachers and staff took their time to share their clips and photos with their well-wishers. And continuing in the educational news aspect of the coronavirus, officials, students missing out on an education. School shutdowns means uneven instruction by Will Sintel. Louisiana's makeshift public school system shows huge gaps of how students are being taught amid the coronavirus pandemic. Shortcomings in two key areas help tell the story of an education system in flux. More than 1 in 4 school districts statewide are not providing feedback to students during the shutdown, or are only doing so for select students according to a survey by the State Department of Education. That list includes the East Baton Rouge Parish, Central Calcasieu Parish, Iberia Parish, and St. James Parish school districts. The spokesman for East Baton Rouge Parish Schools said the district plans to expand its feedback beyond only students in grades 9 to 12, as identified in the state survey. State education leaders say schools need to be in contact at least once a week and preferably daily. The public doesn't know that there is a huge lack of education happening in Louisiana, even though the districts are getting the aid to do this education, said Jim Garvey, a Metairie attorney and the longest-serving member of the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, or BESE. Children are missing out on education, Garvey said. Governor John Bel Edwards announced earlier this month that schools would remain closed for the rest of the academic year, meaning that some form of distance education is supposed to replace about 9 weeks of traditional instruction. And the other key finding, the survey showed that more than half the students in 27 69 school districts lack access to a school-issued or personal laptop, computer, or tablet. That's more than 200,000 students. Officials in the East Baton Rouge Schools District told the state that 55% of the students lack access to a laptop. In Central, that's 50%, Jefferson Parish, 40%, Livingston Parish, 38%, St. John the Baptist Parish, 65%, West Baton Rouge Parish, 65%, and St. Landry Parish, 60%. At the other end of the spectrum, for students lacking laptops, is Ascension Parish at 1%, Lafayette Parish at 20%, Orleans Parish 20%, St. Bernard Parish 15%, St. Charles Parish 5%, Plaquemines Parish 10%, and Zachary 0%. The shortage is even worse in rural states, where 5 mostly North Louisiana school districts say 75% or more of the students lack access to a laptop or tablet at home. Educators said the coronavirus pandemic has exposed a national digital divide that is especially jarring in a state like Louisiana, where about 2/3 of students, nearly 500,000 youngsters, live in low-income households. Leslie Lavoie, acting state director of Democrats for Education Reform, said in an email that the pandemic has exacerbated the already vast resource inequities that negatively impact students and families who live in rural areas or from low-income households. The state survey asked educators if they were providing feedback to students in 3 categories: kindergarten through 2nd grade, 3rd to 8th grade, and 9th to 12th grades. The results show that 24% of the state's roughly 720,000 public school students are getting no feedback, about 173,000 youngsters. The highly ranked West Feliciana Parish school system is among the 51 interacting with students in every grade. Feedback is essential to the learning process. Hollis Milton, superintendent of the district, said in an email, "It is also an important time for our teachers to engage, connect with our students, and provide emotional support," Milton said. Barry Irwin, president of the Council for a Better Louisiana, says schools making contact with students during the shutdown is a critical issue during the pandemic. Because whether you have the technology or not, there are ways that teachers can reach out to students and parents and keep the instruction going, Irwin said. And if you don't have that, these kids are going to fall behind, he said. Mike Falk, executive director of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents, said the survey results may appear bleaker than reality because most districts mobilized once Edwards announced schools would remain closed for the rest of the academic year. The poll was done April 7th through 17th. Edwards announced closure of schools on April 13th. "I believe all the school systems are doing something to get resources out to students," said Falk, former superintendent of the Central Community School District. Sandy Holloway, president of Bessie, said officials have to be careful about drawing conclusions on distance learning from one survey. Holloway said every school district has unique capabilities and challenges when it comes to technology and logistics, and we have to be sensitive to that reality. McGarvey said even the lack of computers at home is no reason for learning to slow. There could be some kind of instruction with Zoom or FaceTime or conference calls that could be going on, even though students don't have laptops, he said. But there are a lot of people not even trying that. Why not try that? Okay, and turning to our first public service announcement for the morning. AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local groups for Learn United, bridging the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have internet but do have a television. We're looking for teachers and others who could offer something of educational value to send in content to air that will enrich the lives of children staying home all day. To submit contact for Learn United, please visit www.unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. That's unitedwayofacadiana.org /learn-united. Here's a new PSA that just came our way. Virtual open mic with Festival Words, April 29th. That's this Wednesday. On Wednesday, April 29th at 7 p.m., the Festival Awards will host its Pieces of Hope virtual open mic on Zoom. For 15 years, the festival has hosted the Grand Coteau-based event featuring writers, musicians, and storytellers. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, creative community will gather online, coming together as an act of hope, come to share or just to listen and enjoy. The 2-hour open mic presents 20 writers and musicians, each performing for 5 minutes. Performers are from Lafayette, New Orleans, New York, and England. That's England across the lake, across the pond, as they say. Not New England, but England. Highlights include performances by the Poet Laureate of Louisiana, John Warner Smith, who was one of the featured authors at this year's Festival Awards in November. Graphic memorist Robin Ha, who is also a featured author at this year's Festival Awards, and poet-musician Cornelius Eady. Also featured James Blanchard, Majin Bro, Melissa Bonin, Laurie Brinkhouse, Brenda Calhoun, Jim Clinton, Laura Daly, Charles Garrett, Laurie Anderson, Shai Abier, Dr. Godfrey Henry, Catherine Kreutzer-Laborde, James McDonald, Valentine Pierce, Charlie Rao, and Margaret Simon, and more. So make yourself a drink, grab some cheese and crackers, sit back and enjoy some exquisite performances that will soothe, entertain, and enlighten. To join us, go to the Facebook page for Pieces of Hope Virtual Open Mic. The link to the Zoom Cafe will be available the day of the event, or contact Martha at fowmartha@gmail.com or call 337-804-2482. This free community event is suitable for all ages and is sponsored by the Festival Awards Cultural Arts Collective. Okay, let's get back to the news. Family grieves father's death. Karen Coleman, 39, took mom to hospital for coronavirus. She recovered. He did not, by Megan Wyatt. Staff writer Keenan Duffy is remembered as the glue that kept his family. Oh, I'm sorry. Megan Wyatt is staff writer. It starts off. Keenan Duffy is remembered as the glue that kept his family, his friends, and his colleagues together. The kind of person who knew everyone and was genuinely interested in their lives. Duffy, 39, had a larger-than-life personality that was matched by his 6'7", 300-pound frame. He was the outgoing type who would lend a listening ear, diffuse a difficult situation, and inspire others to overcome obstacles. That's why when Duffy's loved ones learned of his positive test result for COVID-19, they assumed he would beat the coronavirus. After all, they had watched his mother recover after being hospitalized for the virus. We were just thinking, oh, he's healthy, he's young, he's going to be fine, said his wife, Kirsten Duffy. Even when my son and I brought him to the emergency room, it was never a thought of he's going to go to the hospital and never come back. Wearing a mask and gloves, Keenan Duffy drove his mother on March 25th to Our Lady of Lourdes Regional Medical Center for treatment of the COVID-19 symptoms. Kirsten Duffy had her husband stripped down outside the Karen Crow townhouse afterwards and shower immediately in an effort to keep the family safe. Kirsten Duffy teased him about the hasty outdoor shower, she said with a laugh, and I had even started the shower and everything so he didn't have to touch anything inside. They have been taking precautions against the virus, which has been especially deadly among Black people. They both stayed home except to grocery shop or work in their essential jobs. Kirsten Duffy works as a cashier for the Home Depot. Keenan Duffy worked as a customer service representative for AT&T's call center. They have an 11-year-old son named Jaden and a 26-year-old daughter named Simone. They were hoping to add a new member to the family. Kirsten Duffy had been taking fertility treatments, and the couple was overjoyed to get a positive pregnancy test result on Valentine's Day. A few weeks later, however, came the devastating news of a miscarriage. It's just a whole lot going on at one time, Kirsten Duffy said with a heavy sigh during the phone interview. In hindsight, thinking about it, I was like, yeah, God indeed knew what was going on. I would have been pregnant and trying to raise a newborn by myself. 4 days after driving his mom to the hospital, Keenan Duffy told his wife he wasn't feeling well and he was worried he might have the virus too. He was running a low-grade fever of about 99 degrees. His fever jumped up to about 101 degrees overnight. He took fever-reducing medicine and stayed isolated from his wife and son. They both called their employers to let them know they wouldn't be going to work. Excuse me. Keenan Duffy went to COVID-19 testing site at the Cajun Dome the next morning on March 31st. He informed the workers that he had a fever, cough, and known contact with someone who had tested positive for the virus, according to his wife. Kirsten Duffy said they denied him testing because he wasn't considered at risk, although he was obese and diabetic. Cajun Dome screening site was only available at that time to those with significant symptoms who met specific criteria, such as being at least 60 years old or having a compromised immune system. He was tested later that day at LUS General Hospital. He didn't stay for treatment but received news of a positive test result a few days later. Meanwhile, Keenan Duffy was trying to recover from COVID-19 in isolation at home. He continued to run a fever and developed a cough so strong he would vomit. By April 3rd, Kirsten Duffy wanted to take him to the hospital because he had developed shortness of breath, but instead he insisted he would be okay. Following morning, however, his fever had spiked to 103.4. Kirsten Duffy put him on a mask and gloves and put towels soaked in ice water across his entire body. She started a cold shower and told him to step inside. Afterwards, he was so weak he sat on the bathroom floor and asked to go to the hospital. Wearing personal protective equipment, she drove him to Lourdes, where his mother was still hospitalized with the virus. She didn't know that he was in the hospital because he didn't want to tell her, Kirsten Duffy said. We needed her to concentrate on her own recovery because she was positive too, but she actually is back home now, doing 100% better. Keenan Duffy's family couldn't visit him in the hospital, but was able to communicate via video phone calls. Less than 48 hours after being admitted to the hospital, Keenan Duffy called his wife in the middle of the night. He said his temperature had reached 105.1 degrees, and they put ice packs and cooling shields across every part of his body. His fever eventually went down. He told me, babe, I can't have another night like I did, Kirsten Duffy said. I think he knew then. I think he knew, but he didn't tell me. Kirsten Duffy decided it would be smart to get tested for the coronavirus along with their son. She said they were told at the Cajun Dome screening site that only one person per vehicle could be tested. She asked for Jaden to be tested. They wouldn't test without a picture identification card, Kirsten Duffy said. He's 11, she said. Who does that? So she was tested instead. Kirsten Duffy said she still hasn't been notified of her results since the April 4th test. She later went to an urgent care facility and received a negative result from a rapid test. On Good Friday, Keenan Duffy was put on a ventilator. He suffered a massive heart attack related to complications of the virus and died April 14th, the day after Easter. We're going to be okay, Kirsten Duffy said. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we're going to get to a point where we're comfortable knowing we'll all meet up again. That's what he would want for us. Kirsten Duffy said it's been frustrating to hear co-workers or customers speak casually about the coronavirus. Although she has taken time off from work since her husband's death, Kirsten Duffy said her store was busier in the weeks after restrictions were put out in place than it typically is in the spring. I want people to know that this virus is real, Kirsten Duffy said. Stay home. If you have to go out, wash your hands and practice social distancing. Maybe it will save a life. Okay, looking at day in history. Let's look at a PSA first. Get some of these PSAs out of the way. Of course, the blood drive still continues, or blood is needed. Cancel blood drives and coronavirus fears severely impact blood supply. FEMA CDC identified blood donation as essential function, U.S. Surgeon General will tell people to get blood essential for patients. Coronavirus responses has severely impacted the U.S. blood supply as Vitalant and other blood centers across the country are struggling to maintain stable inventories. With school closures and workers at home, 25% of Vitalant's blood collections anticipated in March have disappeared almost overnight, and that number continues to grow. Through the end of June, Vitalant, the nation's second largest blood collector, has had over 1,400 blood drives canceled, resulting in nearly 41,000 uncollected blood donations. Vitalant strongly recommends that healthy donors schedule an appointment for a donation over the coming days and weeks, instead of donating without an appointment right now, to help us better serve donors. So please call 877-25-FINAL, that's 877-258-4825, or visit vitalant.org. Vitalant has nearly 125 donation centers across the country. Donors can also give blood in mobile blood drives, which must continue to be organized. Blood donors and mobile blood drives will be needed in the coming weeks and months to ensure a stable blood supply for hospitals. The Lafayette Vitalant Blood Donation Center is located at 1503 Bertrand Drive. Okay. Also, there's a hotline for keeping calm through the COVID-19 pandemic. If you're feeling overwhelmed with stress, fear, and anxiety about the uncertainty surrounding the public health emergency, there is a special Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline you can call. This connects you to trained, compassionate counselors who can offer support and who can direct you to mental health and substance abuse counseling services. Trained counselors are available 24/7. All calls are confidential. If needed, please call 1-866-310-7977. That's 866-310-7977 for the COVID hotline. If you have lost your job or if you're reduced hours, you may be eligible for Medicaid. You can apply online at mymedicaid.la.gov. You can also apply by phone by calling 1-888-432-6207 or by mail by sending information to Louisiana Medicaid, P.O. Box 91283, Baton Rouge, LA 70821. Local Medicaid offices are currently closed to the public, so if additional assistance is needed, you can call again 888-342-6207. Okay, getting back to the news, let's look at the day in history. Today is Monday, April 27th, the 118th day of 2020. There are 248 potential shopping days left. Today's highlighted in history on April 27th, 2011, powerful tornadoes raked the South and Midwest, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. More than 120 twisters resulted in 316 deaths. Excuse me. On this date in 1791, the inventor of the telegraph, Samuel Morse, Morse code, was born in Charleston, Massachusetts, my home state. In 1865, the steamer Sultana, carrying free Union prisoners of war, exploded on the Mississippi River near Memphis, Tennessee. Death tolls estimated vary from 1,500 to 2,000. In 1950, Britain formally recognized the State of Israel. In 1978, 51 construction workers plunged to their deaths when a scaffold inside a cooling tower at the Pleasance Power Station site in West Virginia fell 168 feet to the ground. In 1982, the trial of John W. Hinckley Jr., who shot 4 people, including President Ronald Reagan, began in Washington. The trial ended with Hinckley's acquittal by reason of insanity. In 1992, the new Federal Republic of Yugoslavia was proclaimed in Belgrade by the Republic of Serbia and its lone ally, Montenegro. In 1994, former President Richard M. Nixon was remembered at an outdoor funeral service attended by all 5 of his successors at the Nixon Presidential Library in Yorba Linda, California. In 2002, South African entrepreneur Mark Shuttleworth arrived at the International Space Station for an 8-day, 7-night cruise that had cost him $20 million. In 2009, a 23-month-old Mexico City toddler died at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, becoming the first swine flu death on U.S. soil. 10 years ago, former Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega was extradited from the United States to France, where he was later convicted of laundering drug money and received a 7-year sentence. 5 years ago, rioters plunged part of Baltimore into chaos, torching a pharmacy, setting police cars ablaze, and throwing bricks at office hours after thousands attended a funeral for Freddie Gray, who died from a severe spinal injury he suffered in police custody. 1 year ago, a gunman opened fire inside a synagogue near San Diego as worshipers celebrated the last day of Passover, killing a woman and wounding the rabbi and 2 others. John Ernest is awaiting trial on charges including hate, crime, related murder, and attempted murder. He is also facing charges in a mosque fire that happened weeks earlier. Let's look at some of the birthdays today. Rock musician Jim Keltner, fantastic drummer, 78. Rock singer Kate Pearson from the B-52s is 72. Actress Douglas Sheehan is 71. Rock musician Ace Frehley from Kiss is 69. And Kiss was supposed to play here in Lafayette last month, but had to cancel. But I believe they rescheduled, so you can check that out if you go to the Kiss website page. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice is 69. Actor James LeGros is 58. Let's see what else. Rock singer Jim James, My Morning Jacket, one of my favorite groups, is 42. Neo-soul musician Joseph Pope III from Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats is 41. And country musician John Osborne of the Brothers Osborne is 38. And singer Allison Arietta is 28. Thought for today: fear not those who argue, but those who dodge. Dale Carnegie, American writer and lecturer, 1885 to 1955. Looking at today's horoscope, Taurus, dealing with the past will be more complicated than you imagine. Keep your distance from people who have let you down. Stay focused on finishing what you start. Gemini, turn up the volume and march to the beat of your own drummer. Be a self-starter, an organizer, and someone who makes a difference. Cancer, listen to what others say, but verify information before you pass it along. Prepare to make a change if someone backs out of a deal or disappoints you. Leos, be a leader, not a follower. Put your energy into doing what's right, not what someone pressures you to do. Rely on experience and accurate information. Self-improvement will result in compliments. Virgo, consider your objective and what it will take to reach your goal. Use your time wisely and protect yourself against being misled or taken advantage of. Libra, discipline will be required to get some things done. Going over budget or failing to factor in an expense will lead to a stressful situation. Focus on health and financial well-being. Scorpio, let your creativity take the reins and your charisma attract support. An exciting concept appropriately used can be a life-changing experience. Don't get angry when action is what's required. Sagittarius, if you want something done, do it yourself. Physically follow through with your plans. Talking about what you want to do and doing it are not the same. Capricorn, do whatever it takes to improve your surroundings or enhance your personal life. A change you make at home should be well thought out and within your budget. Aquarius, take stock of what you have and what you can pass along. Decluttering will make you feel good and can also bring in extra cash. Romance is favored. Pisces, consider the consequences before making a promise. Additional responsibilities will affect your productivity and ability to do a good job. Don't risk your reputation by covering for someone else. And finally, Aries, put a smile on your face. Your friendliness will pay off when it comes to essential connections. Physical activity will help you look and feel your best. Romance is featured. And as always, folks, the horoscope is an entertainment feature. not based on scientific fact. All right, going back to our news. State coronavirus cases surpasses 26,000. Officials announced 2 new Acadiana deaths by Megan Wyatt. There were 26,773 known cases of novel coronavirus in Louisiana as of Sunday, with 1,279 of those in Acadiana. A total of 1,617 people have died from COVID-19 in the state, 90 in the Acadiana region. The Louisiana Department of Health reported 261 new confirmed cases of the virus in an update on noon Sunday, at about a 0.98% increase since the Saturday update. The Department of Health reported 26 additional deaths in the same time frame, about a 1.58% increase over Saturday. Of the state's new cases, 6 were reported in the Acadiana area, as defined by the Department of Health's Region 4 of Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion parishes. That's roughly a 0.47% increase over Saturday's numbers. Of the state's new deaths, 2 were reported in the Acadiana area. That's roughly a 2.3 increase over Saturday's number. Lafayette Parish continues to have more known COVID-19 cases than any other parish in the Acadiana area, with a total of 443 reported as of Sunday. St. Landry Parish has the most COVID-19 related deaths in the area, with a total of 34 reported as of Sunday. Here is a breakdown of cases and deaths by parish. Lafayette Parish, 443 cases, up 1, 17 deaths, no change. Iberia Parish, 243 cases, up 3, 16 deaths, up 1. St. Martin Parish, 221 cases, up 2, deaths, up 1. St. Landry Parish, 163 cases, no change, 34 deaths, no change. Acadia Parish, 130 cases, no change, 7 deaths, no change. Evangeline Parish, 45 cases, no change, no deaths, no change. Vermilion Parish, 34 cases, no change, 1 death, no change. As of the Department of Health's updated noon Sunday, 265 of Louisiana's 1,701 hospitalized patients were on ventilators. A total of 7,310 tests have been completed by the state lab, with an additional 135,726 tests reported to the state by commercial labs. The number of commercial test results attributed to Lafayette Parish dropped by more than half on Saturday, which state health officials have attributed to removing duplicate reports and moving tests from the parish where the test was conducted to the parish of residents. Louisiana's first COVID-19 case was reported March 9th, and the first cases were reported in Acadiana on March 18th. All 64 parishes in the state have reported cases. Okay, let's look at some educational news. The French Immersion Charter School opening pushed to 2021. St. Landry campus, originally slated to launch in the fall by Katie Gagliano. Students and teachers are hoping for a return to normal schooling in August after closures caused by the coronavirus, but the team at Acadia Franco-Louisiana de Sunset is setting its sights on 2021 after voting to delay the opening of the St. Landry Parish French Immersion Charter School. The school board voted at its April 7th meeting to delay opening to August 2021 after originally planning to launch with kindergarten and first grade classes this year. The coronavirus delay is the most recent in a series of hurdles the school's team has faced while attempting to open over the past 4 years. The group first received Type 1 charter approval from the St. Landry Parish School Board in 2017, but a tight gap on the allowed student population from St. Landry left the stakeholders at odds. The board put out feelers to expand enrollment to other Acadiana parishes, but were denied by local school boards, school leader Lindsay Smith-Ducey said. A Type 1 charter allows the school to be autonomous, but still under the oversight of the St. Landry Parish School District. After mulling a Type 2 charter application with the Louisiana Board of Elementary or Secondary Education, or BESE, in 2018, the board opted to apply with St. Landry again in 2019. They were approved by the board's October 3rd meeting without enrollment limitations, and things seemed to be on their way, she said. Then the pandemic struck. Suddenly, prospective parents struggled to collect their children's records from closed schools and teacher recruiting trips by the Louisiana Department of Education and Council for the Development of French in Louisiana to French-speaking countries and regions stopped. It felt dangerous to bank on employees that may not be able to travel to Louisiana from their home nations with barely 3 months until opening. Everything was thrown into uncertainty, Toussey said. While disappointing, delaying the school's opening became the most reasonable decision, she said. We couldn't have crossed our fingers and hoped, and then maybe everything would have been fine, but how do you hinge a child's education on a hope? That's not our model, Toussey said. We wanted to make a responsible choice, and even though we knew we were going to disappoint families that had already applied and started planning to be with us next year, it made far more sense to make the decision now and show we care about the health of your child and the well-being of their teachers, she said. The school is exploring adding second grade to the eventual 2021 opening. Toussey said the idea is being floated to serve families who intended to enroll their children in the school's first grade this fall. But the academic team is still exploring the proposal's feasibility. Second grade is considered late immersion for most programs, and with standardized testing beginning in third grade, there's concern about settling the students back or overburdening them, she said. The idea is being studied, and the Academy is looking to offer immersion program results for guidance. Toussey said the delay holds some silver linings. The extra time will allow the charter team to evaluate the efficiency of their recruitment efforts. Before the virus shut down, the state had about 57 applicants for 96 spots through online recruitment and a few parent interest sessions. Flyers were scheduled to go out to St. Landry public school parents the week after the mid-March closure was announced, she said. Toussey said she's confident the school will have reached capacity if the coronavirus hadn't derailed application. Now there's time to assess what was working and make changes, especially if the Academy must continue to lean on other online recruiting because of COVID-19, she said. The school leader said frustrating efforts are also up for review. The charter is responsible for all startup funding, and while some support could come from the charter school's program grant and summer programs, outside funding is still required. While a pandemic isn't the best time to raise funds, having an additional 12 months to take stock of the new funding landscape will be helpful, Toussey said. The pandemic has exposed weak points the team may need to consider, she said. As much as I hate that this has happened, it's going to give us a better chance to be prepared for our future students. It will also give us a chance to evaluate what if we have to look into the future of some type of online or more technological teaching. All these things that we hadn't thought about because no one had thought about it and no educational system was prepared for this. Luckily, we have time to be more prepared, Toussey said. The school facilities remain the same. The team plans to purchase and renovate the First Baptist Church of Sunset on Napoleon Avenue as the school's first home, while plans are finalized to revitalize the former Sunset High School building. The historic building is owned by the town of Sunset and would be leased, she said. Stephen Ortega, an architect and member of the school's advisory council, said his main concern with the coronavirus delay is the adjusted timeline for rehabilitating the Sunset High property. 1920s building has been vacant for years, and the longer it's uninhabited, the more it decays, he said. The city had some effort to stabilize the building, but the sooner the restoration work can begin, the better. Even if the Academy were opening in the fall, the Sunset High construction project would be at least another year from starting, Ortega said. The building is on the National Register of Historic Places, could qualify for rehabilitation funding under the state commercial historic tax credit program, but the program is set to sunset at the end of 2021. That's funny, in the town of Sunset, possibly creating a funding gap if the credit program isn't renewed, he said. Whether that program continues to be forced into their funding and construction plans, Takeo said. Toussé said the team hasn't been swayed by the new hurdles. It was simply a disappointing moment, especially thinking about our future students, but for most of us, we just said onward and upward. This is going to give us more time to be prepared and be better and to prove St. Landry Parish that they made a good decision betting on us, she said. Okay, we have a couple more stories here to read. Fiscal collapse threatens future public defense. Coronavirus closes courts across the state by Jacqueline DeRobertis. There you go, Jacqueline DeRobertis. The Louisiana Public Defender Board has long claimed its offices are dangerously underfunded. But now the financial blow dealt by the coronavirus pandemic could threaten the entire system. Public defenders largely rely on court-generated fines and fees, such as commission costs and traffic ticket payments. As COVID-19 has shuttered courthouses across the state or severely restricted their services, those critical fines and fees are now in jeopardy. Because of closures due to the pandemic, we're facing going on another month of zero revenue from our primary funding source, said State Public Defender Remy Boson Starnes. Criminal defense leaders have argued for years that such a unstable revenue stream endangers the constitutional rights of poor people to receive legal help when accused of a crime. In an attempt to keep these rights intact, the Public Defender Board, which has been meeting almost weekly via Zoom, has asked district defenders to nip and tuck spending when possible. In response, at least 21 of the 42 districts have furloughed staff or reduced salaries. And while certain jurisdictions are easing the number of inmates in crowded jails awaiting trials, many cases assigned before the outbreak remain open. District 15 Defender J. Paul Marks, for instance, trimmed $250,000 from his budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. His district, which covers Lafayette, Acadia, and Vermilion parishes, sees roughly 8,000 new felonies annually. The failure of funding means that our communities are threatened with delays for incarcerated people, Mark said. Delays for defendants ready to put their past behind them and crime victims looking for closure in a system underfunded at every level. District defenders have noted their attorneys who are overburdened with high caseloads will now have to do the same jobs for a fraction of the current salaries, perhaps while shouldering cases redistributed after colleagues are furloughed. That's a tremendous human cost, said District Defender David E. Markentile, who oversees District 13 in Evangeline Parish and 31 in Jefferson Davidson Parish. If I lay off one of those people, I can't leave their clients unrepresented. I've got to immediately take all of those cases and reassign them to another attorney. The board is also exploring other avenues in its quest to keep the district solvent. The board has already frozen spending for expert witnesses frequently used in death penalty cases. And in the meantime, some board members are enjoying long-standing contract with nonprofits for the chopping block. In early board discussions, Starnes proposed cutting contracts with nonprofits that represents individuals facing a sentence of juvenile life without parole, a sentence ruled unconstitutional in all but the rarest of cases of the U.S. Supreme Court. The move would save $335,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year, rerouting the money back to the districts. While the measure was ultimately tabled until a later meeting, conversation has left some nonprofit leaders uncertain of their futures. We're looking at it on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. said Richard Bork, director of the Louisiana Capital Assistance Center, which has partnered with state public defense for decades. Aaron Clark-Rizzio, executive director for the Louisiana Center for Children's Rights, said his office is the largest state provider of representation to individuals facing juvenile life without parole. He said he understands the needs for cuts, but worries about his clients and supports debate. That was quite alarming, Clark-Rizzio said. These are individuals, some of them are teenagers, who are facing first-degree murder charges, some of them older. All of them are facing the second most extreme sentence in the state behind the death penalty. Whether they involve newly sentenced juveniles or grown men who were sentenced as children and have spent decades behind bars, these cases are notoriously complex and expensive. Should the board decide to cut contracts with all the three nonprofits that represent juvenile life within parole clients, the cases will go back to the cash-strapped districts where they originated, Clark-Rizzio said. Flozell Daniels Jr., the juvenile justice advocate on the board, is concerned the district don't have the capacity to carry these cases, and not for lack of passion or energy, while some district defendants like Marks says they will gladly take on the cases returned to them. Daniels fears smaller districts will struggle to balance a new, considerably heavier load on top of the current client list. We are not going to willingly, as a board, vote to eliminate contracts that provide constitutionally mandated services, no more than we're going to close districts down just because they're running out of money, Daniel said. So far, district mitigation plans and emergency reserve funds appear to be enough to keep the public defense system operational to the end of the fiscal year, Starn said. He added that the board is still evaluating its options in respect to cuts and reviewing the entire system. Nonprofits are also being asked to scale back their budget. But starting July 1st, Starnes and his colleagues will face the same pressing problems in a drastically altered economic climate. I would hope that the legislature and others can get together and come to a funding source that is reliable, sustainable, and sufficient, Starnes said. And maybe the courthouse closures caused by the pandemic will highlight what people are talking about when we say it is inadequate. There's a couple more stories I'd like to read this morning. We're currently past our broadcast over the TV channels. That's LUS 3 and LUS 15 and Cox 3, or the other way around, can't remember. Anyways, the TV station's broadcast, the audio portion of the broadcast this morning, and it just ended a few minutes ago. So now you can listen, if you want to continue listening, on our YouTube channel, which is AOC Community Media, or at our streaming radio service, which is Cypress, CYPRESS, cypressstreetradio.org, or Cypress Street Radio streaming. Just put Cypress Street Radio in your browser. It should come up, hit the play button, and you continue to hear the broadcast. I just have a few more stories I'd like to talk about this morning. This one that's been in the news lately. Pastor returns to Central Church. Service violates house arrest by Yusuf Radud. The pastor of Central Church, who has defied state orders to limit the number of congregants at the worship services, violated another order Sunday, preaching from the pulpit despite a judge's directive that he stay at home under house arrest, wearing an ankle monitor attached after he was accused of threatening to run over a protester outside his Life Tabernacle Church on April 19th. The Reverend Tony Spell told his congregation, "It's a dirty, rotten shame when you're hiding in America." Its members sang and waved signs reading, "I stand with Pastor Spell." Spell was arrested last week and booked into East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on misdemeanor counts after a protester accused a Pentecostal preacher of nearly hitting him with one of the church's school buses along Hooper Road. One condition of Spell's release is that he refrain from any criminal contact, including but not limited to strictly aiding by all the emergency orders issued by the governor of the state of Louisiana. Spell had planned to turn himself into the parish jail following the service. District Attorney Hilo Moore III said his office didn't plan to pursue the matter Sunday after a Baton Rouge police officer was slain and another injured in a shooting that tied up law enforcement and his office's resources. A judge would also need to issue a warrant for Spell's arrest if he deemed the pastor violated the conditions of his bail. The pastor has said the state's stay-at-home and social distancing orders, both aimed at limiting the coronavirus, violate his and his congregants' First Amendment rights to assemble and practice their faith. At least one church member died after contracting COVID-19, and a lawyer tapped to represent the church fight to hold services was hospitalized. It isn't known where the men contacted the virus. Spell has told congregants who attend services to refrain from touching each other, and stay at home if they're sick. God gave you an immune system to kill the virus, Spell told his flock on Sunday morning. I'm not going to bind the virus. Along with recent aggravated assault and improper backing infractions, Spell has also been cited on 6 misdemeanor counts of violating the governor's stay-at-home order, a house arrest order, and condition he remain on his property about 50 yards from the church and refrain from the criminal activity, including the violating the state's ban on large gatherings, stem from the assault charge. Parish officials have noted other houses of worship have streamed their services in place of in-person gathering. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, I read a story about the courts systems, custody cases. Everything is tied up because of coronavirus. Okay, the last bit I want to read about this morning is a column that the Advocate, Acadiana Advocate, is referring to as acts of kindness. Tell us what you're seeing out there. This is a tough time for us all, but that hasn't stopped people from reaching out to lend a helping hand. For stories we're calling acts of kindness, we want to know about them. It can be big or small. Neighbors buying each other's groceries, a laid off worker getting a little help with bills, running errands for those who are housebound, a friend or family member reaching out to see how you're doing, etc. If you want to be part of our coverage and send those acts of kindness to The Advocate, all one word, TheAdvocate.com/acts of kindness nominations. And also upbeat and positive stories like here in Acadiana, where a couple weeks ago people started putting teddy bears on their windows facing outside, so families taking walks around the neighborhood, the children could see that. There's also artwork that's displayed, musicians, various parts of neighborhoods in Lafayette sitting on their porches playing music. We just had the Festival International virtual experience this past weekend. There's lots of good positive things happening out there, folks. Amid this pandemic, there is a lot of great stuff going on and positive stuff because, as everyone has said millions of times, we are all in this together. So I appreciate you tuning in this morning. As always, if you're interested in becoming a newspaper volunteer, go to aocinc.org. And you can go there and fill out an application and become a reader like myself. And this is basically for the visually impaired community, but it's also for people who don't get the newspaper or have access to any kind of news cycle. So please, if you're interested, go to aocinc.org and check it out. We appreciate you listening in this morning. As always, please take care of each other, be kind to each other, stay healthy and safe. Listen to what the governor has to say today about slightly easing restrictions, but please stay safe. We'll get through this together. As always, like I said, be kind to each other. Have a great morning, Acadiana, and we'll see you soon.